New York Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello has been fired. Code red, everybody alert. Sandy Brondello is out on the market. We got a shark out on the market.
The WNBA just gave us the biggest shock of the playoffs, and this time it comes from New York. The Liberty shocked everyone by firing their legendary head coach Sandy Brondello without warning. But here's the crazy part. What looks like a disaster for New York could turn into pure gold for Indiana. Because if you're Caitlin Clark or a Fever fan, this move screams opportunity. In fact, if you think the Fever should swoop in and make Brondello their next head coach, type it in the comments right now. Grab Brondello now.
I think Sandy Brondello is the best option for us to get the Caitlin Clark of Iowa. Bring in Sandy. Bring in Sandy, and it's going to be showtime, because I believe if you get Sandy, Sabrina Ionescu's a free agent. Breanna Stewart is a free agent. We talking big business now. We talking big boy stuff.
Because let's be honest, Brondello isn't just another name on a resume. She's the one coach who could actually unlock Clark's full arsenal and elevate her from phenom to undisputed GOAT. She has the experience, the championship credibility, and the tactical vision to give Clark exactly what she needs: freedom to dominate and the structure to lead.
She's a great player. It would have been good for our crowd to see her, but hopefully they get to see her after post-All-Star. We get to play them again. As for the All-Star, I'm excited to get to know her a little bit. I think that's the part of the All-Star. It's going to coach players that you haven't coached before and get them to know them a little bit and enjoy the whole celebration.
And that's where the problem starts. The more fans beg for this move, the more obvious it becomes that the league itself would hate to see it happen. Because let's face it, if Caitlin Clark and Sandy Brondello ever teamed up, the WNBA's balance of power would tilt so far, so fast, it would expose every jealous veteran and every half-baked storyline Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has been pushing. In this video, we'll peel back that entire agenda and show you why this partnership scares the league to death.
Now, to me, Sandy doesn't strike me as a yes man. She strikes me as somebody, when she's talking to the general manager, she's going to speak her mind. She's just not going to, yes, GM, yes. Yes, general manager, I agree. Yes, general manager, I agree.
Now, let's talk about how we even got here. The Liberty had a great regular season, no question. They were stacked with talent, won big games, and carried themselves like contenders. But when the postseason came and the lights got brighter against the Phoenix Mercury, their flaws started to show. To be fair, injuries were a massive factor. Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Jonquel Jones were all banged up. But they didn't take a seat. They strapped on their sneakers and battled through the pain, grinding every possession like warriors. Stewart even dropped 30 points in that decisive elimination game, a gutsy, all-time performance. But sometimes heart and grit can only carry you so far. The weight of injuries and fatigue finally crushed them, and the Liberty's season ended in heartbreak.
27-17, ravaged by injury all season long. Jonquel Jones out for a good part of the season. Breanna Stewart dealing with a knee issue during the playoffs. They lose in round one.
Here's the kicker, though. After that brutal loss, not one player blamed their coach. Not a single whisper of discontent. In fact, the opposite happened. They rallied around Sandy Brondello, standing shoulder to shoulder with her and vowing to come back stronger next season. Clips of Stewart, Ionescu, and others backing their coach started blowing up online. The message was loud and clear. They believed in her. And then, boom. One day later, the rug was pulled out. The Liberty's front office, led by their general manager, announced they would not renew Brondello's contract. Just like that, gone.
The New York Liberty have let go Sandy Brondello. Well, in their terms, they will not renew her contract. In our eyes, they parted ways. She was fired, essentially. But not as bad as being fired, I guess. But that's just how we talk out here. Nonetheless, I'm shocked. She's been a coach there for 4 seasons. You look at the past 3 seasons, she made it to the finals in her second season. She won the finals in her third season, and they lost in round 1 this year. Outside looking in, you look at this franchise and you see that's a successful franchise. New York is a powerhouse in the W right now.
The reaction was instant chaos. Fans were stunned. Analysts shredded the decision as reckless. Even rival teams who stand to benefit from New York's implosion couldn't help but shake their heads. Nobody saw it coming. Not one person thought the Liberty would cut loose the coach who literally rebuilt their franchise into a powerhouse.
What would you say to those who question whether Sandy should be here next year to coach you guys again? I'm not saying I questioned it. There's just some people that do.
I mean, to anybody that kind of questions Sandy being here, like, this is a resilient group, and she has our back and we have hers. And the way that she continued to kind of, I don't know, deal with the cards she was dealt, like, was incredible. It wasn't easy for anybody, but she came in every day with a positive attitude and a mindset to put us in our best positions possible and best foot forward. So we're not going to be a team that points fingers. You know, there's a lot of us that could have done better this season, but we're still going to fight and show up for each other every single day, and I think that's what's the most important part. So we have Sandy's back.
Thanks, everyone.
Because let's call this what it is. Not just a coaching change, but the dumbest move in Liberty history. They didn't just lose a coach, they lost the architect of their championship culture. They lost their best chance at another title. And the ripple effects? Monumental.
Just saw this news and I went, what the bleep? Literally, audibly out of my mouth, what the F?
So why are people calling it the most catastrophic decision the Liberty have ever made? Stick with me, because when you zoom out and look at Brondello's resume, her legacy, and what she accomplished in such a short time, you'll see exactly why this is indefensible. Sandy Brondello isn't just good, she's elite. One of the most respected, decorated, and sought-after minds in the entire WNBA. That reputation wasn't handed to her. She earned it, brick by brick, season by season.
2 WNBA championships, and the year before, in 2023, won the Eastern Conference title. I mean, what are we doing? She's got a 600 winning percentage and a ton of experience.
Look back at her timeline. She took over in 2022 and immediately turned the Liberty into playoff contenders in her very first season. That's setting the tone. In 2023, she elevated them even further. 32 wins, only 8 losses, and a trip to the finals. They didn't grab the trophy that year, but they made a statement. New York was back.
Last 3 seasons, Sandy Brondello, 32-8, made the finals, lost to the Las Vegas Aces. 2024, made the finals.
Then came 2024, her masterpiece. The Liberty won their first ever WNBA championship. A dramatic Game 5 overtime against the Minnesota Lynx. Brondello's team clawed, fought, and wrote history. She delivered the ring that had eluded New York for decades. Fast forward to 2025. The team was shredded by injuries. Stewart, Ionescu, Jones, all hobbling through the year. But somehow, Brondello still willed them back into the playoffs. Think about that. Most coaches would have collapsed under the weight of all those setbacks. She still delivered results. That's why the players defended her so fiercely after their elimination. And then the front office tossed her aside. No explanation that makes sense. No real plan for what comes next. Just cold-blooded dismissal. That's not just messy, it's insanity. And it's exactly why fans, analysts, and even rival teams are still screaming about how horrendous this call was.
Moments after a painful Game 3 loss, Brondello said the group was, quote, very disappointed, but she couldn't be more proud of her players. We faced adversity this year, which happens in sports, but we left it all out there. And that's all you can ask of this team.
Here's the stat that just knocks you over. In only 4 seasons with New York, Sandy Brondello piled up 107 wins against just 53 losses. That's not a decent record. That's the kind of resume franchises dream of. That's the gold standard of consistency and winning. So when the Liberty's GM stood in front of microphones and announced that Brondello was out, fans weren't just surprised. They were stunned. This wasn't a headline. This was shockwaves ripping through the WNBA.
Outside looking in, you look at this franchise and you see that's a successful franchise. New York is a powerhouse in the W right now. So what is the issue? What is the front office looking at? What are the ownership?
But here's where the plot thickens. The fallout didn't just spotlight New York, it immediately shifted the conversation to Indiana. Why? Because suddenly, Sandy Brondello was available, and fans across the league were united in one demand. Indiana must dump Stephanie White and hire Brondello. That's how seismic this firing was. The buzz wasn't quiet, it was a roar.
I know the Stephanie White defenders are going to be thick and deep. I don't care. I don't. She's a clear upgrade. And you've got an elite, all-time superstar.
Scroll through Twitter, YouTube comments, Facebook groups, it's everywhere. Hire Sandy. Bring Brondello to Indiana. Clark deserves her. Fans aren't writing cautious suggestions. They're writing ultimatums. Why? Because in their eyes, Stephanie White has worn out her welcome. Too many whispers about favoritism, too many questionable rotations, too many moments where she benched Caitlin Clark at the exact wrong times. The narrative is clear. Indiana's recent progress is not because of White, it's in spite of her.
Sabrina, you want to come for the party? Sandy, would you like to be in Indiana? Have you ever tried the Indiana barbecue out in the hood? Come on.
Fans are flat out saying, even if White wins, we don't care. Sandy is the coach for the Fever's future. Think about that. They're not waiting to see if Indiana delivers a title. They're already demanding a change. And at the center of it all, the fuel behind this firestorm is Caitlin Clark. Because let's face it, the demand for Brondello isn't about Indiana in general. It's about the dream duo of Clark and Brondello. Fans see the vision, a coach who actually understands Caitlin, trusts Caitlin, and unleashes her instead of boxing her in. And that brings us to the real kicker, the part the league doesn't want you to remember.
I think we need to make a move to get Sammy Brondello to the Indiana Fever, man. I think this is Sammy Brondello with Caitlin Clark. This is the closest thing we would get to Lisa Bluter style.
Roll the tape back to the 2025 WNBA All-Star Game. That's when Clark shocked everyone by doing something no player had ever done before. She literally traded for a coach. Caitlin pulled strings to make sure Brondello coached her squad. Let that sink in. A superstar captain rearranged an all-star roster, not for teammates, but for a coach. That wasn't just a move, that was a statement.
Ever coach trade of any all-star game ever. Just want to get your thoughts on that in your mind. First for you, Leo.
They announced it? Yeah. That you got traded? Yeah. Oh, I got to go look at all that. Traded? I have no idea what the teams are. Second time in history now. Jeez, as a player. And I got traded, yes. My son hit me up after he goes, I've created history. This is awesome. I got traded as a coach. But look, I get to coach with Sabrina. I'm on Caitlin Clark's in Indianapolis. I mean, what a great show. So we'll go out there and have some fun.
And once they got on the same sideline, the chemistry was undeniable. Clark was sidelined with a groin injury at the time, but Brondello didn't treat her like a mascot. She made Caitlin an honorary assistant coach. Clipboards in hand, calling plays, motivating teammates, Clark looked like she was already running the league, and Sandy was right there amplifying her voice. She even said out loud that Caitlin could coach as much as she wanted. How often do you hear that from a veteran coach? Never. That's how much respect Brondello has for Clark.
We could fix a lot of this we messed up. We can fix a lot of things that were messed up in the past off season. Let's fix it. Let's not be stubborn. Let's fix it. Let's go get Sammy Brondello.
Fans saw it too, and they haven't forgotten. They point to that All-Star game as proof that this is a partnership made in heaven. One fan summed it up perfectly. The Fever need to sign Sandy and get rid of White. Caitlin and Sandy are unstoppable together. That's not exaggeration, that's conviction. Now here's the twist that makes all of this even spicier. A lot of fans believe the WNBA has an agenda against Clark, and by extension, against Brondello. The theory goes like this. The league doesn't want Caitlin paired with the one coach who truly maximizes her power. And when you connect the dots, it's not hard to see why people think that way.
I'm sorry. This is exactly the kind of coach. I've brought her name up a few times. I just never thought she'd be available. to be frank.
Look at the optics. Sandy Brondello laughs and bonds with Clark at the All-Star game, then suddenly she's out of New York. Coincidence? Or calculated? Fans are literally posting things like, she smiled with Caitlin once, and now she's fired. Sounds over the top, but given the way Clark has been treated, hard fouls ignored, minutes slashed, forced into schemes that don't fit her, does it really feel impossible? So why did New York even cut ties with Coach Sandy in the first place? That's the million-dollar question. ESPN's reporting made it crystal clear. This wasn't about one bad playoff exit. This was politics, power, and a franchise trying to flex like it's bigger than the league itself. According to their sources, the Liberty front office had been circling this move for a while. Brondello's job was basically dangling by a thread unless she brought home a championship. Title or bust, literally.
Winning the title, what exactly led to the parting of ways between the Liberty and Sandy Brondello here?
Well, Malika, I know you guys talk about this a lot in the NBA and in other sports, but it was really championship or bust for New York and for Sandy Brondello. And in fact, if they hadn't won the championship last year, we might have been having this conversation a year ago, which is maybe a little startling to fans outside, given how, excuse me for those noises, for how impactful she'd been for that franchise. But that is how bullish this organization is in New York.
Now, let's pause here. How does that logic even hold up? You bring in a coach who rebuilds your franchise from the ground up, guides you places you'd never reached before, delivers more wins than any coach in Liberty history, wins your first title, and your thank you note is a termination letter? That's like polishing off a 5-star steak dinner and then complaining to the waiter because the garnish wasn't Instagram worthy. It's absurd. ESPN practically spelled it out. This wasn't about performance. It was about unreasonable expectations and power dynamics. See, the Liberty's ownership group is cut from Wall Street cloth. They think sports work like stock portfolios. If the numbers dip even slightly, you cut the asset and buy a new one. There's no patience for context, no appetite for the long game. It's dominance on demand. And if you can't supply that every single season, they'll find someone they believe can. The irony? Brondello wasn't just winning. She was winning in spite of massive challenges. Injuries that sidelined her stars, limited depth, and a grueling playoff run. She still coached them to the finals, still wrung every ounce of fight out of her roster, still earned the respect of her players. Yet somehow the front office twisted that into a failure.
I would expect them to really, again, be bullish in who they go after. We know that they are a WNBA franchise that invests a lot in a lot of resources, a lot of financial, capital into these decisions. So I think it wouldn't be shocking, though, if they decide to go after maybe someone in the NBA, someone that we might be a little bit more of a non-traditional hire. I do think Sandy Brondello has a great shot of getting hired again. We know what she has done in this league.
And here's where Caitlin Clark comes into the picture. Because this isn't just about New York's decision. It's about how it ripples across the league. Clark isn't just a player anymore. She's the face of women's basketball, every move magnified, every word dissected. And when a respected coach like Brondello openly praises her, acknowledges her impact, and dares to spotlight her importance, that shakes the old guard. It unsettles veterans who don't want to admit a second-year guard has redefined the game. It rattles league execs who'd prefer the spotlight be spread around. That's the subtext ESPN hinted at, but didn't fully say. Brondello's willingness to validate Clark's influence didn't sit well in certain corners of the WNBA. And so, while the Liberty can dress this up as a business decision, fans see it for what it really is, a political move. But here's the silver lining. New York's loss could be Indiana's golden opportunity. Imagine Brondello taking the sidelines next to Caitlin Clark. Imagine the league's most empowering coach paired with its most transcendent player. That's not just a good fit. That's a revolution waiting to happen.
New York Liberty just fired their head coach. People are confused as to why, because they won the championship last year. They made the playoffs this year. In sports, there's always a scapegoat when things aren't going the way that they wanted it to go. Clearly, in New York, the standard has been raised. As Coach Tibbs learned with the New York Knicks, making the playoffs does not guarantee that you are safe anymore. They have raised the standard. They're sending a message to the fans, to the team, saying, we don't want to just go to the playoffs. We need to go to the finals and we need to win. So if it's not the players on the court that are changing, it's got to be the coaching staff. So unfortunately, that did mean Coach Sandy.
Because here's the reality. Brondello is the one coach who doesn't treat Caitlin like a young player to be controlled. She treats her like a generational leader to be unleashed. That kind of freedom is terrifying to a league that's built entire systems around limiting Clark's dominance. And that's why so many believe the WNBA won't allow a Brondello-Clark reunion in Indiana. That's the painful irony. The perfect combination is sitting there in plain sight. Fans see it, analysts see it. Even Caitlin herself clearly knows it. Yet the very people in power, the ones who should want to grow the game, are the ones standing in the way. Which brings us to the question hanging over this whole situation. Not, can this happen? But will they ever allow it to happen? So I'll leave it to you. Is this just a coincidence, or is it part of a bigger plan to keep Caitlin Clark from reaching her full potential? And if Brondello and Clark ever do team up, would it completely break the WNBA's balance of power? If you think the Fever should swoop in and make Brondello their next head coach, type it in the comments right now. Grab Brondello now. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.